This is your wrap-up of Week 16 of the 2018 season presented by our friends at Verizon. A lot of things coming into focus, guys. And I want to start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are so talented, and we see their potential, and we see them go on winning streaks. And then we see what happened today in the Superdome where they had it won, and they found a way to blow it.
Well, I know there's a lot of mistakes on the field, but to me, it goes a little deeper. I think a lot of people talk about Mike Tomlin possibly getting fired. I think Mike Tomlin is a really good coach. I think the one thing that he has to really focus on in his locker room, and this is coming from an ex-player, I think he has to do a better job of eliminating all those distractions. You know, a lot of times you have enough talent to overcome that, but when you start getting guys injured and they're not focusing on the things they need to focus on, Coach, those things come back to haunt you.
Well, last month of the season, at a point where we thought they might be battling for the number 2 seed. They go to Denver, they get a lead in the fourth quarter, they lose that lead. They're up 16 points on the Chargers. They lose that lead. They were up today in the Superdome and lose that lead. As a former Steeler defender, I'm not used to seeing that, giving up those type of leads in the fourth quarter. Their defense has to come through a little bit better.
Got 2 words for you guys. Le'Veon Bell. You know, no Le'Veon Bell all year, and eventually it caught up to them. James Conner being out for the stretch. You know, you replace. Le'Veon Bell's a difference-making player. We all know that. The inability to get that settled and get him in starts the distraction road you were talking about, Rodney. But they miss a guy like that on the field. You can't. He's an MVP-type player. And without him this year, it probably hurt them, not just in the locker room, but on the field as well.
And I think Mike Tomlin's a great head coach. I just think that, you know, he's got the hard parts of the job down pat. They trip up over the easy things, the little things, the things that they should be able to figure out, like not having Antonio Brown doing Facebook Live from the locker room like we saw a couple of years ago after the playoff game against the Chiefs. Little things that you should be able to iron out of the game and focus and focus and focus and win.
Well, it's the little things, and you talk about Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, he's a great offensive player, but the problem is on defense. We saw it last week against the Patriots, some confusion. Every single week we see confusion in big plays.
You know, I understand your point. I'm not saying that. Just going back to the big picture, we stopped talking about Le'Veon Bell once the trade deadline came and went, and that deadline for him to sign week 10. We're getting the weekly Florio update on that. Just to remind you of, that's an elite-level player who they didn't have this year. Look, they're right on the fringe of the playoff. They still might find their way in based on results, but given the amount of talent there, you're kind of disappointed for Steeler fans that they will not be in the postseason
today,
once they get a break.
You know, 2 fourth-down pass interference penalties, 2 fumbles going in the plus territory. Those are the things that kill you, and the mistakes that they've made over and over again.
Well, even with a healthy Le'Veon Bell, they never went to the Super Bowl.
I know, right? We're just talking about getting in the playoffs here.
Right.
You know? We're just trying to get them in. Right.
And it is not going to be easy. They need to root for the Browns next week. I can't imagine a Steelers fan rooting for the Browns to beat the Ravens. All right, the Saints have the hay in the barn. They're home until Super Bowl 53 because they've got home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They have to win in the playoffs to get there. Who can go into the Superdome out of the NFC?
Oh, that's easy. That's the Chicago Bears and the Dallas Cowboys. Both of them have really good defenses. They're not so top-heavy where it's all offense. I love the balance. I think the Chicago Bears have enough confidence. They can go anywhere and win.
Yeah, it's got to be a team that can rush the passer and play man coverage. That's your formula. You always talk about that. And the Bears have done that. They've shut down a lot of people, home or away. But I just think it's going to be so tough. The Saints play at a different level at home.
And can you play man coverage on those receivers who are not the level of receivers that some other teams have? Will they be able to create and get open players by scheme and those other things? Because those receivers who we saw on Thanksgiving night against Atlanta, they had a good game against the Falcons, but they haven't had those big games since. Let's watch that.
But this is the problem. When the Saints have an off day, is their defense good enough to carry their offense? And that's the problem. We automatically assume that the Saints' offense would just be rolling and put up 30, 40 points. But what if they just have an off day, Mike?
That's good enough? Is that defense good enough to do that?
No.
To go win a playoff game?
And here's the thing. Week 17 now means nothing, right, when the Panthers come to town. Then they have their bye week. They may take the foot off the gas, and they're going to be facing a team in the divisional round that will have played and won in the wild card round. And your Eagles are a team that fascinates me. If they could get past the Bears, if the Bears end up the 3 seed, or the Rams if the Rams are the 3 seed, the Eagles go into the Superdome where they lost 48-7 with Carson Wentz at quarterback, and we see what Nick Foles is doing. And I think that that's a situation that could blow up on the Saints.
If the Eagles get in, no one's going to want to play them, I promise you.
All right, speaking of the Eagles, with Nick Foles, we saw a franchise record in passing yardage today. We saw a performance that is as good as it's been, and nothing is changing. And how far can Foles take this team?
Well, they've got to get in. They believe in Nick Foles. I tell you, being around them for a week last year and just seeing how those guys responded and what they thought. And when you watch this team the last 2 weeks in L.A. and then today, defensive line is rushing the passer all of a sudden. Running backs are running hard. Receivers are getting open. And as Rodney says, a lot of different receivers coming into play.
Is that just the quarterback change? I mean, is that what is it?
Maybe they feel like they have to.
I tell you, Mike, I played a long time, and when you feel like and you believe in a guy, you play harder for him. And I'm not trying to start any controversy, but you just
it's
play
there.
harder
It's
for him.
there.
right
Eagles
out there.
fans are already focused on it. And Chris Sims had a great point this week on PFT Live. He thinks Wentz is a better quarterback, but Nick Foles allows the Eagles to be a better team because they don't get infatuated by the things that Wentz can do. They just focus on their offense and the things they have to do, and everything settles down into what they want to do.
Well, I thought Doug Peterson was very telling on our pregame show last week when he said, I've got to do the things that Nick is comfortable with. And when he does that, I think that makes them a better team.
Yeah, we talked about him knowing his limitations and not trying to do too much. And I think that's huge because a lot of times you sit back and you watch Carson Wentz and he's making all these incredible throws. He's holding the ball. He's always trying for the big play. And once again, Nick Foles does a great job of spreading the ball around.
Mike, you mentioned it earlier, how tiebreakers make for strange bedfellows at the end of the season. You're talking with Pittsburgh rooting for Cleveland next week. How about the Patriots fans who lost the Super Bowl to the Eagles after the Patriots won against Buffalo? They're outside the stadium, and they're cheering, watching on the big screen as the guy who won the Super Bowl MVP against them beats Houston to allow New England to get into the 2 spot. It's just awesome the way that happens year in, year out.
I was actually cheering for Nick Foles, not because of that, just because I'm a big fan.
Really?
But you know the thing about the Patriots too, and I'm going off script here because I heard your comments during the show about Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski concerns about the Patriots. But you know it always seems to fall their way. Here they slide back into the number 2 seed. They still have an outside chance at the number 1 seed, and they get that bye week, and they have playoff experience. I think that's the one thing we're overlooking. So many of these teams don't have that experience. They're in those single elimination games every single year.
And I'm the first one to admit Rodney's point. The Patriots have looked bad the last couple of weeks, but they beat Houston already. They beat Kansas City already. They beat Indy already. They've beaten a lot of these teams that they're going to play in the AFC playoff picture. And I know how tough it is going up to New England and trying to win a playoff game.
But, Coach, don't you want confidence? Don't you want to be playing some of your best football?
You absolutely
we talked about this earlier this year. You want to play your best football right now. And when I've looked at Tom, I came to the Patriots in 2003. For the last 15 years, I have not seen Tom Brady look worse. I have not seen Rob Gronkowski look worse.
I would agree.
And a lot of times we sit back and we think that they can automatically, okay, this is the Patriots. They're going to turn it off and turn it on. It doesn't happen like that anymore. Not with the Patriots, because all these guys have gotten older, and they're not playing well right now.
Houston, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Indianapolis. Can any of those teams go to Foxborough and beat Brady and Belichick? That's the question you have to ask, because if they win and they're the 2 seed, somebody's going to have to do that to keep them from playing for the AFC title.
All right, you know what time it is?
Lightning round.
Speed round time.
Time for me to
All right.
go.
No, speed round time. NFC defense you trust the most.
Excuse me?
NFC defense you trust the most.
Chicago Bears.
Coach?
I would say the Bears also.
Bear down, Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I'd like to say somebody else, but at this point, the Bears. Michael David Smith had an item on PFT over the weekend about how the Bears passing defense has taken like quarterbacks back to the 80s in a year where we have seen unprecedented significant performance by quarterbacks. All right, AFC team you don't want coming into your building in January.
Baltimore Ravens.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
there you go.
Unorthodox
Yeah,
offense
I
and
agree.
very good defense.
So
how about-
at a time when the NFL has gone to the Big 12 and spread, they've gone to the old Big 8 where they're running with 3 guys in the backfield. And guess what? It's working, and people are having a tough time. And their defense, you asked about the NFC, their defense may be the best in the entire tournament if they get it.
Here's the one caveat I have, though. The Chargers this year, 5-4 when playing in Los Angeles, either Carson or the Coliseum, 6-0 outside of L.A., and they're now looking like the 5 seed, and they're going to have to go on the road, and I think they're going to be dangerous. Shakiest playoff quarterback. You can say Tom Brady?
I was going to say Jared Goff.
I should have known. I should have known that.
Yeah, Jared Goff.
The way he's played, don't get fooled by the way they played against Arizona. Arizona is statistically one of the worst teams in the league, so Goff hasn't shown it against the best teams in those last couple of weeks. So confidence-wise, it has to be a little bit shaken for him.
Well said, Mike.
Coach?
I'm going to say Lamar Jackson.
Lack of experience?
Lack of experience and all the fumbles, you know,
Yes.
that you've seen. Putting the ball on the ground in the playoffs is not good.
10 fumbles for the season, and 3 of them lost here in the 6 starts.
And doing some great things,
Yeah,
but miscues hurt you in the playoffs.
I'm going to say Kirk Cousins if the Vikings make it, because you guys know when he's bad, he's Kurt. When he's good, he's Kirk. Right? If the Vikings make it and they play in prime time, we know Kurt's going to
Who's your
show up.
favorite team in the NFL?
I hate them all equally. That's my official position. All right.
They feel the same.
Exactly. And yet somehow, I don't know how I get anybody to talk to me, frankly. I'm going to just shut up now. Indianapolis, Tennessee, who you got?
I can't tell you.
can't-
now.
Well, they put it on the
No,
list.
you gotta
Who's your producer?
gotta
We need to
tune
fire
in.
that guy.
Sunday
Tune
night at
in.
7 p.m.
You'll find
We'll
out
tell you.
then. We're going to hold you in suspense all week
That
long.
producer is miserable.
See you next week. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. See you
Merry
next week.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all. Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.